Even if you're not familiar with the Aston Martin brand, which was founded in 1913, you can just take one look at this vehicle and you know that it's probably fast, probably expensive, and probably exclusive. I'm going to tell you just how fast, how expensive, and how exclusive. We're going to start with three key numbers: 12, 300, and 700. Significance? Well, V12 engine, a 5.2 liter twin turbo V12 engine to be exact, made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission. 300, well, that's the starting price of this Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. Superleggera in Italian means super light or ultra light. Next, 700. That's the 700 horsepower club, which is very exclusive, especially for a vehicle as light as this DBS, only 4,068 pounds. And that much horsepower, 715, that's a great power to weight ratio. You know, in the terms of GT, Grand Touring vehicles, this is at the pinnacle. Very few vehicles are in this neighborhood. V12, proper GT, 200 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in the sub 3 seconds. But that's not what this vehicle is about. This vehicle makes a statement. It has over 100 years of heritage. And of course, there's James Bond. As much as the DBS is about exotic beauty, it's also about the raw performance. The growl that this vehicle makes is just unmistakable. And you can see here we have a very large grille. You have this carbon fiber splitter. It's carbon fiber throughout this vehicle, but you need this large grille to help cool this engine. You know, air is just flowing through here, and Aston Martin's really done a great job. This vehicle is really meant to go, 160, 170, 180 for hours and hours at a time. Aston Martin has a rich racing heritage, and they put all that into their pinnacle model, which is the DBS. There is one version of this vehicle that's even more expensive, and that's a special edition DBS on Her Majesty's Secret Service. We had a little peek at it, and it comes in only in olive green. They've only made 50, and that's it. And that vehicle is $400,000 as shown, and it is just stunning. This vehicle is stunning too at $332,000, and it's really turned a lot of heads. We took it to Cars and Coffee, and they gave us front row status. We met a few professional athletes. Melvin Gordon from the Los Angeles Chargers, professional football player. He can afford just about anything. He really spent a lot of time looking at this car, asking questions. For someone who can afford just about anything, you could see why they would gravitate to something this beautiful and this powerful. The DBS is one of those vehicles that looks good coming or going, looks good from the side, from the front, from the rear. I don't care where you look at it. So what makes this vehicle a little more unique than a standard DBS? Well, for one thing, it has the black roof, so that certainly adds several $1,000s. It also has the quilted interior option, not just on the seats, but throughout the vehicle, and it's certainly a nice touch. It's added some reflective surfaces to the rear deck lid. So when you look in the rear view mirror on a sunny day like this, it could be a little distracting. Look, I got to nitpick at some things, so that's one thing. The infotainment system, things like that, not exactly the greatest, but that's not what this vehicle is about. This is all about presence. This is about everyone just kind of turning their head when they see this, not just when they see it, but also when they hear it. You're in the driver's seat of the Aston Martin DBS Superleggera. Starting price $301,000. As tested, $332,000. As you can see, a proper GT racing steering wheel, flat bottom, and this, as mentioned, is a truly unique automobile because of its exclusivity. 12 cylinders, V12, 5.2 liter twin turbo, over 700 horsepower, 715 to be exact. Great power to weight ratio at only 4,068 pounds. Sounds heavy compared to like a 911, but look at the horsepower. And the power delivery is just seamless. And then the price tag, over $300,000 for a GT, really the most expensive GT you can buy. Over here we have a very important button. This is the drive mode button. We're in GT. God forbid they call it normal or eco, because it's anything but. Even in this mode, quite responsive with the 8-speed automatic transmission. But push it once and you're in sport. Push it again and you're in Sport Plus, and that's when you get the nice exhaust feedback. Just doesn't get old even after 5 days of this. Just a thrill to drive. This is truly one of the most unique vehicles, and you know, pulling into Cars and Coffee, I brought some pretty nice vehicles there, but the first time they've actually put me in the front row next to the Lamborghinis and Ferraris and McLarens, and that says a lot. That speaks volumes to the cachet that this vehicle has. It's a head turner. You know, every little styling cue is just right on point for what you would expect for a vehicle of this magnitude. It's just a beast. Truthfully, I think my 911T with a manual transmission is more engaging, more fun to drive. But it doesn't have the presence. It doesn't have the awness of this vehicle. I mean, yeah. My biggest complaint is there's nowhere to drive it here in the U.S. This is an Autobahn car. This is a 200-mile-an-hour car to get some very wealthy person from point A to point B in comfort and style, but also very quickly. As far as the electronics, infotainment, and some of the little quirky things, it's just okay. I'm not going to tell you that this is some mind-blowing Mercedes-Benz or Rolls-Royce, or you name it. Aston Martin's a relatively small car company, and so they're not going to put their money into gauges and infotainment screens. They put their money into the powertrain, into the body, which is Superleggera means super light, so it's relatively light. They're putting it into the driving dynamics. I mean, this handles much like a GT race car, and that's really what it is. Aston Martin has got a long history of racing, and a lot of that is poured into this vehicle. As if this vehicle is not exclusive enough, Aston Martin just produced 50 olive green limited edition on Her Majesty's Secret Service versions of this DBS, and they are just spectacular. We had the pleasure of actually looking at one, and it's amazing what a designer can do when given some leeway. It's much like an artist with a blank canvas and a lot of inspiration, and that's really what we have here. I'm going to put it back into GT mode. As you can hear, the road noise is terrible, but that's what you want. This is a race car. Forget the radio. And by the way, the radio is a pain in the ass to work with. Just very complex. No volume button, no tuning button. It's silly. But love the paddle shifters, massive paddle shifters, and the reason they're so massive is because they're mounted to the steering column instead of the steering wheel. In the past, I haven't been a big fan of it, but for this vehicle, it actually works. So when you're turning, you still have somewhere to grab, and because they're so long, you don't need those little tiny ones mounted to the steering wheel. Essentially, they're right where you need them to be. Just a beautiful steering wheel, just very comfortable, and it's amazing how quickly you get used to 715 horsepower. It's a lot of power, don't get me wrong, and even in GT mode, you can lose control very quickly, and that's because regardless of traction control, stability control, there's only so much that electronics can do when you're dealing with 715 horsepower on a 4,000-pound car. It's just, you know, straight physics. But, you know, from an aesthetic standpoint, this thing is just gorgeous. From a driving standpoint, it is just perfect. You know, it's a good size, it's comfortable, but it hugs you in all the right places. I can't begin to tell you what a rare treat this is. You can see just how quickly you can jump to 110. I mean, I could be at 160 in no time. 0 to 60 in sub 3 seconds, you know, 3.2, 3.3. And as Aston Martin tells us, it's really a function of how much tire you have, how much grip you have, because the car can do more, but the tires can only sustain so much grip. And as you lose grip, you're going to lose some 0 to 60 times. So that's kind of what we're talking about. But just I think some things I could point out. The auto start stop, kind of ridiculous. When you're spending $300,000+, do you really care about an extra mile per gallon? I don't think so. I mentioned the infotainment, it's a disaster. This particular model has the optional quilted seating, which is great, but you also have this quilted rear deck, and it's highly reflective. So right now I'm looking in my rear view mirror and I see so much reflection, a lot of lines and diamonds in there, and it's just too much. It's too busy. You know, the 911 has the same issue in the front. This car has that too. Just they have this speaker in the front, and it's very reflective. These are little things, but you know, when you're spending this kind of money, you would think these vehicles would have been properly tested. Hopefully, outside of England, where it's cloudy all the time, and this doesn't matter. Well, here in California, it's sunny, and so we want you know, we have to deal with this kind of reflection year round. Vehicles like this, I think, are just becoming more and more rare. There's just something just awe-inspiring. This is up in the upper echelon, you know, with the Ferraris, and that's probably its only true competitor. You know, Jaguar has nothing. BMW is the most expensive, you know, M8 you can get. It doesn't even come close to 200,000, much less 300. Mercedes, okay. That's maybe its closest competitor if you're talking about the S65, because it has a V12 engine. But feels like a much heavier, bigger vehicle. It's a Mercedes, which is great, but doesn't have the cachet of an Aston Martin. I mean, this is James Bond's car. I mean, we're going 90 miles an hour, and it's just steering is perfect. There's just nothing. There's just no challenge to it, you know, except the biggest challenge is really not getting a speeding ticket. As I pull up behind this Ford Fiesta. The DBS is a unique vehicle. I mentioned just how exclusive it is, not just based on the power and the price, but also the fact that it has a V12 engine. Very few vehicles are still available with a V12, and Aston Martin certainly has taken advantage of that. As you can see, carbon fiber throughout the rear spoiler. Just anywhere you look at this vehicle, it really just screams, you know, I've arrived and I know what I'm doing. To me, it's the Rolls-Royce of GT cars, and I mean that not just from a luxury standpoint, but also from a performance standpoint. I'm Ron Doran. Thanks for watching. See you next time on The Driver's Seat.